It feels like AI has made its way into most genealogy tools now, from Ancestry to Family Search, so I think it's time we answer some of those really important questions, the kind that only a genealogist would ask.
We need to know where it was born, who were its parents. We want names, dates, locations. So come with me today and let's find out all the juicy family secrets about the history of artificial intelligence.
You know those times right after the alarm goes off, you're not quite sure if you're asleep or awake, and some mornings I dream I've been chasing an elusive ancestry hint, but this morning, it was this thing about 2 inches in front of my face, and that voice?
Hey, are you awake? Let's make a family tree.
Clippy?
Do you know who my grandpa was?
If you don't remember Clippy, he was that eager little Microsoft assistant who got in our way all the time back in the 90s. He meant well, but oh my goodness. To understand Clippy and where this AI stuff is headed, we need to go way back and unearth some AI family secrets from before many of us were even born. And maybe we'll find the answer to that burning question: who was Clippy's grandpa? Here's the chart we'll explore. I know it's kind of tiny, but we'll zoom in. And also, just to be perfectly honest, it's not a perfect chart, but I did my best. Let's start back in the summer of 1956. A group of brilliant minds gathers at Dartmouth College. They're convinced they can make machines think. They scribble equations on a chalkboard near an open window, and across the top of the board, one of them writes, "Artificial intelligence" in big letters. Classical AI is all about logic, rules, searching through possibilities like a game of chess. The dream is born, but the tools are really big, really slow computers that are fed by piles and piles of punch cards. Progress is tedious, so as the decades roll on, the AI family divides into 2 lines of thought. Let's call it the Great Divide. On one line, you've got the symbolic crowd. It's the 1970s, and researchers in neatly pressed button-down shirts are hunched over terminals. They're carefully encoding logic into rule-based systems. If patient has fever and spots, then one should definitely suspect a case of measles. The symbolic crowd is optimistic and full of promises. Their rules will conquer the world. Meanwhile, the connectionist kids, off in a little basement somewhere, they're all turtlenecks and big sideburns, and they're not hung up on rules. Instead, they're thinking about the brain, how it works, how it learns. So what we have is 2 very different philosophies on how intelligence works. It's kind of like debating the best way to handle family history. Are we going to focus more on the written records or on family stories? But most of the focus is on the symbolic side of the house, on all those rules, and the going is really slow. This leads to what historians call the first AI winter.
A winter? Did all those punch cards freeze?
No, Clippy. The first AI winter wasn't about bad weather. That symbolic approach just ran out of steam for a while and funding dried up, although you are a later product in the symbolic line.
I am?
Yeah, we'll talk about you more after a while. That first AI winter doesn't last too long. In the 1980s, the symbolic AI line makes a big comeback. Expert systems are the big hot new thing. Consultants pitch them in boardrooms. They're promising software that thinks like the top human experts. And for a while, it looks like the rule-based approach is finally paying off. But as time goes by, it becomes clear that there's a problem. Expert systems are inflexible and they're hard to maintain. They fall apart when anything unexpected happens. Funding dies out again, and what do you think happens?
Another winter?
The second AI winter feels a little bigger, so I think we'll call it the Great AI Winter. And it lasts into the 90s and maybe a bit beyond. But do you remember those guys in the turtlenecks?
The connectionists?
Yeah, they shaved their sideburns, and the ladies in the group went through kind of a big hair phase during the 80s, but all along the way, the connectionists just keep plugging along over there in their little basement. They still don't have much funding or attention, but they're quietly building systems that can adapt and improve. You might call it deep learning, and this is going to come in really handy as computing power catches up and the internet begins to take shape. The symbolic AI line doesn't completely die out. You can see here on the chart there will be some hybrid systems in the future where they all work together. And of course, in the early internet days we have...
Me! I arrived right here in 1997.
Yes, Clippy, you arrived, whether we wanted you or not. Actually, not just you, but also several of your other cousins like Dragon Naturally Speaking and Alice.
And Bob. Don't forget Bob. He was a good guy, that Bob.
Clippy and his awkward little cousins didn't last, but they left us with a vision of what future AI assistants might be like. Now, fast forward to 2012. Researchers Ilya Suskovar and Alex Krzyzewski and their advisor Jeff Hinton are staring at their screen. They've entered a competition to see who could build the best computer program for recognizing objects. This involves millions of unlabeled photos and thousands of categories. Can their deep neural network learn to tell a cat from a dog, a fire truck from a flower? They're letting the machine learn from the data instead of hand-coding every rule. Will this approach pay off? Nobody's sure. The numbers start coming in. And they aren't just good. They crush everything else, and you can almost feel the last traces of the great AI winter melting in the heat coming off those overworked GPUs. Deep learning has truly arrived. And the connectionist crew who quietly stuck it out all those years in the basement through the turtlenecks and the sideburns and the big hair years, they just hit the jackpot. Computers can finally see. And then they start to understand language next, thanks to systems that can remember what came earlier in a sentence, like short-term memory for machines. And that brings us to Generation 5. That's the era we're in now. And maybe you don't remember where you were in 2017 when a paper titled "Attention is All You Need" came out. But in the AI world, that was a big deal. That paper introduced transformers, and these are systems that are great at figuring out which words matter most, even when they're far apart. That attention trick helps them understand meaning in a way that earlier systems just couldn't. So we had the early experiments like Babelfish for translation and Dragon for dictation and our friend Clippy. And now we've got a new generation. It's that transformer line, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude.
And Copilot, harnessing the power of large language models to assist.
Okay, Copilot, who seems just as eager to be your friend as Clippy ever was. These cousins are probably what most people mean these days when they say that AI stuff, especially after ChatGPT went viral in late 2022. But as you can see, that AI stuff has really been developing for decades, starting back here with good old-fashioned AI, then the symbolic versus connectionist split, the winters where progress seemed stalled out and the breakthroughs fueled by new ideas, more data, better hardware. And of course, I've oversimplified many things in this history and left many things out. But at its core, what we have is several cycles of innovation, challenge, and rediscovery. So who was Clippy's grandpa? I think that would be good old-fashioned AI, the ancestor that came straight out of the Dartmouth pioneers' 1956 dream. He's got quite the family history. So look in the show notes for my links to the AI in genealogy sources that I use most. There are many others, but these are just my go-to links. And if you want a copy of my little family tree chart thingy, I'll give you a link to that as well. And I'll be back soon with another story.
Analyzing record. Match probability 78%.
Translation suggestion available.
Arrival found, Port of New York, 1903.
Census match. 1910, Polk County, Iowa.
Here's what I found on the web.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Recalculating. Proceed to the route.
By the way, would you like to reorder AA batteries?
Don't forget Bob. He was a good guy, that Bob.